Radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. Good evening. How you doing? Kicking off another week here on Fade to Black. That's right. Today is Monday, January 15th, 2024. Let's do this, man. Very excited about the week that we've got ahead. It starts off tonight because our guest is the one and only, the Reverend Michael JS Carter. And we're going to get into that in just a minute. Earlier today, get your t-shirts, by the way. The links are below. 2 t-shirts, 2 ways to get them. Get yourself a Game Changer membership. By the way, the 2XL t-shirts are back in stock. That's right. Yeah, we are fully stocked all the way across the board. So get your t-shirts right now. And the links are below. Help support what we do. I had mentioned earlier today on the breaking news. What a crazy breaking news day. But I couldn't get it out of my mind all day today. Last night was the premiere of season 4 of True Detective. And it's on Max, which I guess used to be Cinemax and then HBO Max and then HBO and whatever. But now it's just called Max. So that's what it's called these days. And very confused about streaming services. Like Showtime is now part of Paramount Plus. Paramount used to be Paramount. And then everything is just, it's always in flux. But you can check it out on Max. Anyway, last night was episode 1 of season 4, and unlike some of the other streaming services out there, where you get a whole season, and that was one of the things that I really enjoyed, was having an entire season, 10, 12, 16 episodes up, so you can just binge, right? Well, True Detective, that's once a week, and you got to hang out and wait for it, just like like the old days. But anyway, episode 1 last night. Now, all of the True Detective seasons, and each season had a different detective and a different case, and different star and so forth, different cast. This time around, and I was very surprised, Jodie Foster. And you can never get the movie Contact out of your mind, out of your brain when you see Jodie Foster. And I get that. And so there's an element to that in this. And the way that they set it up last night with season 1, this is crazy town. Now, I don't want to, it's just too good. So please, everyone, just head over. This is not a paid endorsement. But it's that good. It's like waiting for the next season of Game of Thrones. You had to wait 2 years. You had to wait 2 years for the next season of The Sopranos. Same thing with True Detective. I've been waiting for this. And man, it did not disappoint. It was really, really good. So go and check it out. All right. So with that, and I mentioned it earlier today, and I'm doing it again now because I can't get it out of my brain. It was like that good. All right. And also, I didn't mention this earlier today, but I posted up a picture last night. My brother and his wife, Mary, flew into town, and they do this every year. They go on vacation, and they go somewhere in the world, and they come into LA, they stay the night at LAX, and then fly, right? So they flew out today. But last night, I got to see my brother Danny and his wife Mary and have dinner. and just hang out for a few hours. And it was just such a good time. He's such a cool dude, and she's great. And it was weird, man. We talked about family and life for like 3 hours. And something we've done it over the year, but last night it just felt different. It was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. Anyway, Danny, if you're listening, that was and Mary, that was pretty awesome. So I posted pictures up of the three of us out there on social media, and go and check those out. All right, let's get straight to it. Michael JS Carter is with us. And tonight, well, it's no surprise what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about religion, spirituality, disclosure, UFOs, contact, abductees, and how, and these are his words, but I love this, how a populated universe will challenge the religions of the world. We're going to be doing all of that tonight. He is originally from Baltimore, Maryland. He moved to New York City in 1980 and lived there for 27 years, working as a professional actor before moving to Asheville. He is an ordained interfaith minister and received his BA degree in letters from the College of New Rochelle, where he graduated cum laude. He received his Masters in Divinity Degree from Union Theological Seminary in New York City, class of 2000. He has served as a staff chaplain, board certified at various hospitals in New York and in North Carolina. He is a longtime UFO contactee. We're going to go through all of that tonight. His book, Alien Scriptures, Extraterrestrials in the Holy Bible, was #1 on Amazon's list of UFO-related books back in 2014. Of course, he is a regular consultant on ancient aliens. It's been featured in the UFO TV documentary, The Real 4400. He's worked with Steven Spielberg. He also, The Real 4400 and the UFOs and Hidden Evidence on the Travel Channel. His website is below over on social media and on our website. And I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black, the one and only. Here he is, Michael JS Carter.
Hey, Jimmy.
How are you, brother? Hey,
okay,
listen,
brother.
Check this out. This is, there are a lot of Reverend Michael Carters out there in the world. And which is why you had to put the JS in there, right? Because lot of imitators running around, but there's only one. There's only one Michael JS Carter.
So far, so good. Yeah, man. I haven't been here for a while, so I'm glad to see you. Wishing you and yours a happy new year, and this is a good way for me to start the year. So thanks for having me on, and I got to give a shout out to Michelle for making this happen. Yeah,
Michelle's the best. Yeah, Michelle is the absolute very best. I work her. I work her to the bone, and I guarantee you, she's not listening right now. She's in bed. She's in bed. And she works so hard, and just bless her heart. I'm not saying bless her heart because you're on the show. I'm saying it because I really
just to bless her heart.
Yeah, bless her heart. And you know what though? I figured out something right before the show about you. I know what JS stands for. Just Snoop. I'm just saying that's
you did, because we did,
I figured that out.
For Dizzle, yeah.
Oh man, okay.
I am the Snoop Dogg.
Yeah. Okay, we got to get serious though. Let's because let's get serious. It's so good to see you, and here I kind of want to do this because with what you do, you're ordained. You're a reverend.
Yes,
right?
Yes. I have my own congregation. The whole bit.
Yeah, you got the whole thing. But instead of the baby Jesus in the background on the wall, I see aliens. And I remember this is years and years ago when you and I first met, and you and I were talking, and I said, "Man, is there a conflict? How is everybody else out there in the spiritual and the religious communities dealing with this subject matter and dealing with yourself?" Has the world changed? Is it now okay to do what you do and talk about little green men?
Wow, that's a great question. I would say the short answer is yes and no. The short answer is yes, because obviously with what's been going on with Congress and, Brother Grush and other people coming forward, many other people coming forward around disclosure, that it's not, people don't snicker as much anymore. But I think churches are still in a bubble. Especially I think of the Protestant variety. I know my congregation, even though it's a very liberal Protestant denomination, Unitarian Universalism, they're so left-brained that they don't even consider this. It's still kind of taboo. There are a lot of ministers who cannot come out, and they know this is true. If they've studied the languages and what have you, they know about the Elohim, they know about the mistranslations, but they can't come out and say this. It would cost them their jobs. I don't think it's incompatible to, but as you said before, if once you say yes,
Oh, you froze up, Michael.
I acknowledge that there's a.
Okay, you froze up, Michael. Ah, man, no. I don't know if you can hear me. Okay, let's do this, Michael. If you can hear me,
Yeah.
I want you to back out of the studio and come back in.
Okay.
Just back out and rejoin. Okay, and let's reset this.
All right.
And while Michael is doing that, everything was fine. It's just a technical thing. It's probably an EMF, some plasma storm hitting the earth. But it is such a touchy subject when it comes to religion and ET and contact. And I think today, especially with our audience, that today the Reverend's back. What I was just saying, Michael, is that religion and ET has always been touchy and fuzzy, but I think that the world is getting smarter.
Yes.
And so when they look at, what ET may be, right? Whatever it may be, but then they kind of back up and go, but the Bible and heaven and angels and things from the sky and knowledge and who was Moses talking to on Mount Sinai? Where did that stuff? It's like people are starting to ask themselves, are we just talking about the same thing here?
Yes, that and that's and in answer to your question before the big freeze, that's exactly why the conversation has changed. The narrative has changed. I remember when I went out of my, I left my kind of denomination of origin, the Baptist Church, and people started thinking more. Not that traditionalists weren't. I don't want to put that out there, but as your congregation got more intelligent, you had to become more educated if you were a minister, because you had to make this philosophy, this religion relevant. That's why people leave. I mean, not even just about the UFOs and that kind of thing. People are saying, with all these do's and don'ts and all these deeds and creeds, unless you can make this relevant for me, I can stay home on Sunday. I can go out in nature. I can go watch the football game. I've got, and that's our challenge, because people are leaving in droves because these stories aren't relevant. It's hard for me to reconcile the stories I read in the Bible and the hypocrisy I see in the churches, what I see around me. And so that's why people leave. That's why I left. That's why I left. I couldn't reconcile the theology and the people I knew who didn't believe the same thing I believe, but they were good, honest, hardworking people. And it was hard for me, so we've got to make these stories relevant, regardless of UFOs. But this is what we're going to be talking about, because otherwise people say this is all BS, and you guys are the very things you're accusing me of doing, you're doing on Saturday nights. And so how do we reconcile this? And so congregations are getting smarter. More information is coming out. We're talking about disclosure. People are putting this together. If I'm seeing if these things are in the skies now, they must have been in the skies 5,000-6,000 years ago, and so they're more sophisticated. And we need to be able to deal with that. So far, the only denomination that I know of, regardless of what you believe about their theology, and I don't agree with all of it, infallibilities, even though I am a fan of this particular pope, the Catholic Church has always had their whatever's going on behind the scenes. But since 2009, they've been putting it out there, probably before then, that we need to be prepared that the creator or who or whatever you want to call it has been just a little busier than we thought, and that there are other beings out there, and we need to grow up and be able to deal with that. They had a symposium in 2009. What was it? Benedict was the most conservative pope in my lifetime. Benedict the 16th, I think it was. Could be wrong, by the 16th. And they came out and said it. Corrado Balducci, who talked about, listen, he's the head of the Vatican. When he was alive, he was working with exorcists and demonology and what have you. For him to come out and say the things he said, the Pope had to okay that. And he was talking about people who say that they've seen extraterrestrials. They're not demons. These people are not suffering from any type of neuroses, that these stories need to be taken seriously. For the Vatican to come out with that position was big. It was big, and it was in our lifetime.
Very forward thinking. And then the Pope, I believe it was the Pope, it was certainly a press release came out of the Vatican attributed to one of the popes. I don't even know who the Pope is today. I'm a little lost on it. But anyway, he said, well, E.T. deserves and has the right to be baptized. And I was like, holy crap.
Like, what are you saying? 400 years ago, only 400 years ago, you were burning people at the stake for even thinking that.
Yes.
So here we have this whole paradigm shift. We have a government, one of many, that the very things that they made fun of us for and said you got to be nuts. Now, and some of the same people are turning around now and saying, you know what, you were right, and here's why. So these are exciting times. We're not tackling, when I say we, I'm talking about as a society. We're not touching on the religious aspect of this yet, at least not publicly. I'm sure there are think tanks. You've probably read about them where church leaders have gotten together. I'd love to have been a fly in the room and to talk about this. I think we're going to have to. Right now, we're just focused on tech and national security, but there's a whole lot more to the picture, obviously. And one of those issues is going to be religion. It's going to be religion.
All of them. It doesn't even matter. The impact affects. It doesn't matter if it's Islam or Christianity or Catholicism, but Hinduism, Buddhism, right? It's across the board.
Yes.
And I was going to say Zoroastrianism or whatever the other.
Oh yes, yes.
Here's my take on this, and then we're going to talk about you. Here's my take. When I know I've told you the story, but just for the audience, let's just set the table here. I was like 21, and I know I just turned 21, and I'm here in Los Angeles. And one summer, I decided to read the Bible, and I didn't. It wasn't a religious thing. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to be able to participate in a conversation if somebody brought up the Bible, instead of saying, or agreeing or disagreeing. I just wanted that foundation. So I get myself my King James and I read it from cover to cover. And then I flipped it over and started it again. And I suddenly had this thing click. This is science fiction. Now, I'm 21.
Wow.
I'm 21.
Wow.
Now, I was into UFOs. I had all the books. I was, I would be Egypt, pyramids. I was into all of that stuff, Eric Von Daniken.
Yeah.
But suddenly this thing clicked, right? And then, so as that's going on, this other friend hands me this book, and knowing that I was in the middle of reading the Bible, hands me this book about conspiracies in the Catholic Church or some crazy book. It's paperback. So I'm reading this book, and most of it I thought was comical, but anyway, the mark of the beast with the chip in your hand, and this is
yeah,
all that stuff. So I whatever on that, but there was a section in the book that said that the original Bible, Catholic Bible, was the 10 Commandments was changed, and that they took one of the commandments out, split it in two, and still had 10 commandments in the new Bible, but the one commandment is missing. I thought, you can't do that. That's not true. So I go knock on my neighbor's door, get their Bible. I've got mine. It doesn't matter which one is which, but I go to the 10. I was, holy crap. This conspiracy is true. And I thought to myself, and not in a religious thing at all, but what I did back up going, who is telling me the truth? What am I supposed to believe? And what is really going on in the world? Is it just all a lie? And I'm talking about my entire worldview changed.
Yes.
And it didn't change my views on religion, but it was just something that who has the right to do that? You know what I mean? Who has the right? You don't have the right. And so it was a confusing thing. And so what it forced me to do, Michael, was go back and examine everything, what is really being said, and what was the meaning behind it. And that's it. And I think I'm just like the rest of the world now. I'm not any different. I'm just an everyman asking the same questions.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know, Brother Carson talks about this a lot about, what we've been told and but the thing is this, and this is why I'm glad that we finally reconnected. And again, thanks to Michelle, because at the beginning, yes, as you know, I'm an experiencer and I'm a clergy person. And so there's that tension there. Well, it's not tension now, but, there were people before me, Barry Downing, Eric, going on and on and on. We could name Morris K. Jessup, who died under mysterious circumstances in the 50s, yada, yada, yada. But how I've changed since last time you've seen me is that I have realized that the Bible, at least the Old Testament, it's not a book about God. It's not a book about God at all. And I don't want to take people's faith away. I'm just going by what it's not. It's about our ancestors telling us about this invasion and how they had to deal with it, and how these beings, kind of the Elohim, and we know about the mistranslation. Zechariah talked about that when he was alive, Zechariah Stitchin, and how these beings interacted with us. And when you read the Epic of Gilgamesh, obviously, when you read the Vedic scriptures, when you go back and look at the Mesopotamian, Babylonian, Akkadian scriptures, who are unashamedly they're not talking about God at all. They're saying that these beings came down and interacted with us. Some of them meant us well. Some of them didn't. Some of them found Earth women attractive. Some of them married. They had kids. Some of them genetically engineered. These are stories of how our ancestors dealt with these beings. And religion, this is how Western religion was started. Genesis, as you well know, is plagiarism is too strong a word, but it's a retelling of the Mesopotamian text. But there's no God. And people leave, Jimmy, because they look at Yahweh and they go, how is this supposed to be this omniscient, omnipresent a deity? Certainly can't be the same deity that Jesus is talking about. Where's the love? Where's the compassion? Where's the forgiveness? And they go, I can't believe this. This is either a myth, it's a made-up story, but this guy is committing genocide. He's jealous. He needs therapy. He's got anger management problems. But when you start reading the Bible, and you don't have to know the languages, if you just translate everywhere you see the Lord or God, if you just put Elohim, which is a masculine plural, oldest Hebrew word, it starts to make more sense. That we're not talking about a God story here. We're talking about some entities who are interacting with human beings. And then you start seeing it for what it really is. And this is what I have come to. It wasn't that I was afraid to go there. For my own experiences, some of the beings I met were kind of neutral. Some of them, didn't really do me any harm. Maybe one time they hurt me, but I still wouldn't let it in because my life got better. Even though I had post-traumatic stress and all that, my life got better. I felt better. But I also had to look at the other side. That, yes, okay, Michael, you've had a wonderful experience. But Bud Hopkins and I used to go through this all the time. Bud, we were both at extremes. I was kind of like with John Mack, and this is all a great spiritual experience. And it was. And then there were people in Bud's group who were like, man, I've had sperm and ovum taken. I've had rectal probes. Don't tell me that this is kumbaya.
Yeah.
Which is not, but now it's both. And so that's where I have come through. And people may say, well, Michael, you're a reverend. What are you talking about? Well, where is God in all this? I feel that this forces us, if you've had these experiences or if you just it forces you to define what that means for you, rather than have me or some priest or some mediator tell you what that means. Now you have to work through, what does that mean for you? Maybe you don't believe in the God or whatever word, the forge. It doesn't matter what you call it. But now at least you can come to that conclusion without being coerced, without being threatened by heaven or hell, without being saying, you're a bad person. But I say, and I think that's why other ministers won't talk about this, because again, I almost lost my job. But if you read it, if you don't read that Old Testament as a God story, it starts to make more sense. And you don't have the moral quandary of, can I still be a religious/spiritual person and believe these stories? You don't have to do the mental gymnastics.
Me and my friends, I'm talking about 40 years ago. And we used to do what everybody did 40 years ago. We smoked a lot of weed, and we would sit around and get into these deep philosophical discussions. And they were awesome, man. I had some really smart friends. And I remember we're sitting in our living room in this house in Pasadena. And I'm going through, I'm telling you, man, I was going through some trauma at the time with the Bible and this conspiracy book and other stuff that was going on. And I was really questioning everything. And so I say to my friends, trying to sound intelligent, I go, man, if you take angels and you take this and you take that and you replace all of that with aliens in the Bible, you got a whole other story. And I said, you got the greatest movie ever made.
Yeah.
The fight that it came out of that, right? And the argument, but it was awesome because I said that 40 years ago. We say that a lot today. But those were I'm going to say it, those were the revelations that I was going through. It was right in front of me. It was a big deal.
It was, Now, if you had said that 400 years ago, they'd have burned you at the stake.
Oh, for sure.
And with your books and your studio with you. But see, now it's okay to say it to a degree. It's okay to say that to a degree, but look how far that we've come. But you're saying it, Eric. You're saying it, Eric Von Daniken. I mean, if you put ET everywhere you see angel, because angel just means messenger, and they don't tell you what the messenger looks like or what have you, but that's what it means. You've got a whole different book there. Now it's different after the New Testament when Jesus comes along. And so we're not talking about that right now. But what we have to remember, and we can always go there, but what we have to remember is primitive Judaism was never monotheistic. It only became monotheistic after Moses. And this is why Yahweh is telling them, you do not worship these other gods, because there were other gods there. Right. You don't worship Dagon. You don't worship Baal. You don't talk to Asherah. As a matter of fact, I don't even want to see any graven images of them. I'm a jealous God, which gives you a hint right there. And so when we look at the Bible and we see these prophets and everything, they're talking about Yahweh. They want to get rid of these other gods. He is a jealous God. I don't want you talking about them. And so what is he trying to do? He's trying to, and his kings, King Hezekiah, King Josiah, we can go into them. But what they did was they went around and all the altars that were built to these people, you can read about it, obviously, in the book of Jeremiah, in Samuel, what have you. They say, no. So we get rid of the high priest. We get rid of Dagon, Baal, Asherah. We take down all those altars. And what do we want? We want one God, one king, one temple, Jerusalem. We're already starting to get a hierarchy. And people say, why? Why would they do that? Well, the answer is simple, the same thing we do today. Because it's easier to govern people that way. There's no alternative news. There's no alternative news. The only news is Yahweh. That's the news. And so anybody who doesn't believe in Yahweh, shame on you, and you can use your life. And it's right. I mean, I can give you chapters and verses.
Oh yeah.
It's right there.
Let's we're going to talk about ET, everybody, I promise. But here's the thing.
Well, we are talking about ET now. It's in the Bible.
Is this. Everything that is listed in the Ten Commandments in the Old Testament, God broke.
Yes.
Every one of them. Jealousy, greed, gluttony, murder, coveting.
Don't murder. Well, because that's the thing. Because remember, there were 16 and 13 of them. There's an old joke that Moses comes down after getting Yahweh again. He says, "I got it down from 6:13 to 10," and they're cheering. He says, "But fornication is still one of them." You know what I mean? That's still, adultery's still in there, but I got it down. Well, but see, that's the thing. And that's why people say, because we've been taught to read these stories as God stories because of the mistranslation, but they're not God stories. They're not God stories. The writers in the 6th and 7th century, King Hezekiah, his grandson, King Josiah, they decided that they were going to streamline government. Josiah was king at 8 years old. So come on. And so he was having his advisors who would come to him, like your grandfather said, listen, Jimmy Church and Michael Carter, and we found them. They're still worshiping these other gods. We should take care of them, don't you think? Oh my God, Uncle, what would I do without you? Yeah, go get them. And so they wanted to streamline. Jeremiah, if you read the book of Jeremiah, he's lamenting that he's saying to the Jewish people at the time, why are you still looking after these other gods? Yahweh is the God. And you say, why would you get rid of Asherah, who taught people how to make beer and taught them what plants were good and why are you getting rid of all them? Because Yahweh is a warrior God and he streamlines everything. There's going to be one temple, Jerusalem, one God, one king, everything is streamlined because it's easier to rule people that way. And we see that happening now. I just saw that one of the Russian Orthodox priests, I don't know if you saw that yesterday, he may lose his job because he wouldn't pray for Russia to win the war. And I bring that up because you look at Ukraine, you're looking at what's going on in Israel and Palestine, all these people worship Yahweh. And so Yahweh is about revenge. Yahweh is about war. Yahweh is about, I'm going to conquer. There's no love and compassion there. There's no, and so that legacy from biblical times and before, we're seeing how it plays out now. If you look at the New Testament, you don't see all that. Jesus is coming to talk about something else, whom he calls the Father, which it probably is his father. Because if your father is an ET and your mother isn't, that means you're a hybrid. And we know that Joseph wasn't his earthly father.
Right.
So you see where this goes?
I do. Would you be surprised, and now we're going to talk about you, would you be surprised the repeated dogma? Well, if a flying saucer lands on the White House lawn, okay, so let's say that happens. Stairs come down, and we watch, right? And it's Jesus, right? Would you be surprised? And would it be because maybe ET is shape-shifting, right? That it would be an image that wouldn't freak us out. Would you be surprised?
I would be cautious. And the only reason I say that is, yes, I think if he came back, how else is he going to come back? Maybe on a ship or something. But I know with the technology and stuff that our government has and that other governments have, how do we know that's not a false flag? I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. But I'm not. I don't know. But I would not be surprised. I mean, how else would he come back? He leaves on a cloud, which is the vernacular they were using of the day. Our ancestors weren't stupid people. They knew that you didn't fly on a cloud, but they were using the vernacular of the day, just like in the Old Testament, where they're flying chariots, they're flying shields, what have you. But what I think is that's why no one wants to touch this, because of people. You have a very open-minded audience, right? And either people will agree or disagree. But there are other people who this right now would freak them out. And I think the governments of the world are saying, let's do one bite at a time. So right now, we won't get to the religious part, at least not publicly. But because I guarantee you, governments of the world know that what you're talking about and what Eric's talking about and what I'm talking about and Paul Wallace is talking about and the brother who wrote UFOs of God, they know this stuff. Believe me, they know it. But it's just we'll keep it quiet and until we're ready to deal with this narrative. So right now, let's just deal with disclosure. Let's just deal with the tech. Let's take the narrative and put it out there so only the military and the government knows the truth. We'll change the name. We have our experts. Don't listen to these other people. Because if you control the narrative, then you control the story. And at the same time, they can say to you, if something comes up, they can say to you, well, we were trying to give this to you. We were trying to tell this to you, but you know, we could only do it a little bit at a time. This is the reason that, I mean, I think we're already in disclosure. And I can give you many reasons for that. But if we're waiting for Caesar, whoever Caesar is, it may be Trump, it may be Biden, who knows? It's going to be an interesting year. But whoever the emperor or empress is, if we think they're going to come out on the White House lawn and say, guess what, folks? We've been BSing you for 70 plus years. And by the way, some people have even lost their lives. We've had to take some people's lives because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time where they just knew too much. But no one's going to say that. That's treason. No one's going to say that we knew, not unless we did something like Mandela and Tutu did with Truth and Reconciliation, which I'd be all for, so we could get the truth, but we wouldn't, people would, you know, yes, you did some terrible things. We would have to navigate that. But they're not going to say that. But if you look at the timeline, 70, 75 years, where does it take you? Right back to Truman and Eisenhower administrations.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I'm hopeful, but I think we're in disclosure already. When Paul Hellyer was talking about this stuff before he died, obviously Edgar Mitchell, Paul Hellyer was talking about this stuff. Nobody medicated him. Nobody said what the, you know, and for him to come out and say that, the things he said, he had to have some type of authority to say, well, put it out there. When Dmitry Medvedev, Putin's old, you know, they're still good. That he was a high-ranking politician. I forget his official title. On a hot mic, when he said that every Russian prime minister gets a dossier of all the extraterrestrial civilizations that we're in contact with.
I think he was president.
Yes, he was. He was.
Yeah, he was president. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, he was president when he said that. He was president on that
hot mic.
Yeah.
Ne'er a dog barked, as they say. No, Putin didn't come on and rebuke him. I talked about Hayam Mashad the other day. Chris, you know, the head of Brigadier General of Space Security for Israel. What in 20 December 2022? He said there's a galactic federation. He said that we've been in contact with them for 75 years, that there's some ETs who want disclosure. There's some who don't. We have bases on Mars. Why would this man lie about that? And he said that the only reason there's not disclosure is because there's some ETs who say we're not ready yet. No, not because we're violent and crazy, but because we don't understand what space is yet, and we don't understand the technology yet. Nobody locked him up. Nobody said, what is this man talking about? And for them to come out and say that, they had to have had permission to say that. I can give you other examples, but you already know them. So we're already in disclosure, I think, but people think it's going to be this big announcement on women. We could talk about Jacques Vallée and Brother Nolan, but they're coming out, Elizondo, they're coming out and saying this stuff. Someone has said, quietly, you can do that, but sometimes it just goes over people's head. Alain Juliet, the ex-French CIA intelligence person there, he said the same thing. I mean, these guys are head of intelligence of major countries, and they're saying we have been in contact and are in contact with extraterrestrial civilizations. And this stuff is in the public domain. This is not like something I researched and you couldn't find. You just go on the internet and look. You can bring up the articles, and we can go on and on and on. We are in disclosure. It just may not be the way we envisioned it. And I think we need to take it seriously.
There's a press release, and last week, maybe the week before, it's all a blur now. It came out, the head of the Professional Astronomers Association, whatever these guys call themselves, that run these observatories around the world, made a general statement in this press release and wrote up a paper that was published. And he said, this was signed off, and it was a group. But anyway, the quote, he said, "We need to start talking about right now about how we astronomers are going to have to deal with the discovery of intelligent life in the universe, because we are looking deeper and deeper and deeper into space, and there's too much out there, and eventually we're going to find something, and we are going to have to psychologically deal with it ourselves. Yes, the rest of the world, yes, but we as astronomers, right?
Yes.
We need protocols in place, because we're gonna have to go to crazy town.
Yes.
And that's inevitable. It was a wild press release to read, and because they're like concerned.
Yeah, they should be, and they should be. They should be, as should religious professionals. It's very hard to get people to change their minds when their salaries force them to look the other way. It's very hard, when my salary says I shouldn't look at, not my salary, but it's very hard. And if you're a tenured person, if you're an academic and you spent it religious or what have you, and you said economic, and you spent your whole life with one theory of how things work, and you've been rewarded for that, and you've been, get accolades for that, and then something like this comes along, and you think everything. You're not just going to say, "Oh, sure, boy, isn't this interesting? I thought this all these years." And no, it's hard to do. And
they're going to have to deal with it. Did you see the movie Don't Look Up?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Peele. What's his name? Gordon Peele. I know you're talking about.
No, Don't Look Up. No, not that one.
No.
Don't Look Up is with Jennifer Lawrence, and she's an astronomer. She's a PhD.
Okay,
it's on Netflix. You need to watch it. But the opening scene in the movie, this is what happens. She's kicking it. He opens up the telescope. She's doing her work. She's got her thing. She's making a piece of toast, and she goes over and she starts looking at the big screen of what she's looking for different. Anyway, she finds and discovers a comet. And so she goes back, and she's like, "Wow, that's kind of weird." So she goes back an image, and then another image, and then another image, and she sees the comet. She's got 5 images of this comet streaking across. The point is, she goes, right? It caught her by surprise. Just imagine an astronomer doing the same thing, making coffee, goofing around, listening to the Sex Pistols on their headphones, and going about their nerdy day. Right. And he turns around and looks at a spacecraft in another galaxy streaking through space, and the reaction that they're going to have to that. They're going to lose their minds. Going to lose their minds.
Well, look, this is probably how some of our religions were started. Imagine you're 3,000, 5,000 years ago. Okay, and I do remember seeing the trailer for that movie. So they don't have any words for the technology, obviously. They don't, and then these beings come out, and they're gonna be godlike to them. But again, here we are doing what our ancestors have been telling us this for these many years. And all these narratives, whether they're Viking narratives, whether they're in a Nigerian, whether they're Hindu, whether they're Native American, they have been telling us what it was like to be interacting with in a populated universe, and that this has always been. And I will go one step further. I think that, if we read those stories with the lens that we are now, we will see today that behind the scenes, because I think what they were trying to tell us, Jimmy, is that there's an extraterrestrial overlay to everything that goes on this planet. Everything, whether it's economics, religion, politics, geopolitics, there's an influence from off-world.
Back then, let's back this up. Let's pull a number out. Doesn't matter. 5,000 years. Let's go 5,000, 3,000 BC, right? At 3,000 BC, and you can think about how Native Americans or South Americans or Central South America or different countries around the world saw new cultures for the first time, right? Well, okay, they could have been from over the hill, right? Didn't have cars, so it's not like you would walk 100 miles to go and discover something. You didn't leave the village. But everybody was, for the most part, curious and probably friendly. So if you met a being from another planet, you weren't thinking that. They were from the other side of the ocean. Or you know what I mean? And it was a different form of contact. Today, we're going to treat everything as hostile, right?
Yes.
So but back then, the wording of it, they did the best that they could. They didn't have the vocabulary to describe what was going on.
Exactly. They were writing, using, the vernacular of their time. However, what I think changed is that when we look at Asherah, who is supposed to be the consort of Yahweh, she is remembered, and she has different names in other cultures, she's Isis in one culture, maybe Egyptian, I forget who she would be in the Greek culture, because they call them Titans, the other people, Anunnaki or what have you. But they just have different names in different cultures. And some of them taught us, like Asherah, again, beer, agriculture, sanitation, city living, these kinds of things. So, banking, these kinds of, they brought a cultural change. Some of
intelligence. They brought intelligence. Yeah.
No question.
No question about that. Now, before we head to the break, we'll set this up for when we come back.
Okay.
How old were you when you had your first contact experience?
My first conscious experience was 1989, December 28th, 1989. So if we do the math, what was I? I'm 67 then. I was in my early 30s, late 20s, early 30s.
Were you were ordained by that time?
I was working on my ordination, yeah. And at that time, I wasn't into UFOs at all. As a matter of fact, I was I never even really watched. By that time, I had never even really seen a whole season or even Star Trek episodes, which I'm glad now looking back, because after what had happened, people would say, "Oh, Michael, you saw that on TV," but no. But yeah, that's what had happened, and I was just shifting away from Orthodox Christianity. That the Baptist tradition that I was raised with. That's what accelerated it.
During that time, it was breaking off. You had Whitley Strieber, Communion, Bob Lazar was starting to surface. Of course, you had Eric Von Daniken, you had Jacques Vallée and his books, and the other stuff that was happening in the UFO community was really, really lifting really, really quick. But you weren't a part of any of that.
No. As a matter of fact, after I had my initial experiences, I went out and bought all those books. I couldn't get enough. And that's when I found out about Barry Downing, for instance. It was like water to a thirsty man, because I didn't have to recreate the wheel. And I was like, okay, I'm not, I have a reference point. I'm not crazy. And then when Bud regressed me, and prior to that, Dr. Gene Mundy had regressed me. So it kept me grounded. And I ran out and I bought everything I could because I wanted to know what happened to me. But because I'm not a tech person, I didn't care about back engineering and propulsion systems. I wanted to know, well, what does this do to your consciousness? I didn't use those words then, but it was more what is the spiritual aspect of this?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was John Mack. At that time, it was John Mack, Brother Jacobs, and Bud. Those were the trinity, if you will, of gods, if you will, of who could make sense of what was happening to folks.
Now, what about the race aspect of this? Because it's a white world when it comes to UFOs. And if I'm not in any way being cavalier here.
No, I'm glad you asked the question. But I know you talk about this stuff. Everybody
I've talked about it a lot. I've talked about it a lot. And before I say something stupid like, some of my closest friends, well, it's not even about that part of it.
Of course
it's that I'm smart enough to look around and go, there's a lot of white dudes in this. Yeah. Right. And we don't have a monopoly on this. I don't think ET is using a race card here.
Not at all. And I'm glad you broached it. I mean, yes, it is. When I go to conferences, and I haven't been to many since COVID, but a couple, I'm the only kind of fly in the buttermilk, if you will. But I see a little more people coming more and more. But I think, Jimmy, that a lot of that is cultural in the African American community, not just the African American community, because I live here in the South now, moved here from the North. And there are a lot of evangelical white brothers and sisters too, but especially in the African American community, those Bible stories, those stories that we used to illustrate what we went through coming to America, ancestors, slaves, and that kind of thing. Those stories are sacred. And it's also a very Jesus-centered theology. And if I hear this story, Michael, about ET and what have you, and it doesn't resonate with me because it's not enough Jesus in it for me or what have you, it is rejected. Now, again, it's not just our community, but it is our community. And you do see it in the white community as well. Listen, I do Reiki, and the energy has changed a bit. When I started having my contacts, people would say to me that your energy is really kind of different. I have a sister who I love dearly, who is an evangelical Christian. We won't even talk about UFOs, but she will say, no, I don't want you to put your hands on me because it's the devil. Or she'll say to me, you write all these books about UFOs, where's Jesus and all that? As if to say that unless Jesus is in it, it's not legitimate. So I think that I'm glad you broached the subject, because I think it keeps us out of a lot of conversations. Pardon me, but we're keeping ourselves out of those conversations because we don't want to go beyond out of this box. And in order to get to the table, you got to open your mind. Now, I do see more and more people at some conferences I go to, more and more representation, but a lot of that is because of the religious aspect.
And cultural. One of the guys that I went to school with that started Fade to Black with me and Jimmy Church Radio is Hilton Palm. And Hilton's Black, born and raised in South Central. Great guy, one of my best, dearest friends. But he's black. And I asked him one day, Michael, straight up, I go, so you see a UFO, right? You see a flying saucer. Do you tell anybody? And he goes, no.
No.
And I go,
No.
What do you mean? And he goes, no. I don't care what I saw. I would never talk about it.
You can't.
I go, why? He goes, dude, ghost? If I saw a ghost, I wouldn't tell anybody. If I saw this, a UFO, anything, no. It's no. And it was, he didn't even want to explain. He didn't want to talk about it.
No, it's taboo, man. It's taboo. And you know, when I was coming up, if you were into the environment, if you were talking about UFOs, people would say, that's white folk stuff. What do you care about the earth? That's white folk stuff, eating granola bars. What are you talking about UFOs? And because it was almost like your African American card had to be challenged. Well, let's see. Are you really African American? Let's see your ID card. I'm being facetious, but I'm not. And now we see that. Now things have changed. I mean, if you were into swimming instead of basketball, if you were into playing tennis, you know, instead of playing football, you know, it was all that cultural identity stuff. Are you really who you say you are? But that's closed-minded, and it was then, and it is now. But people evolve and things change. But it's still more so in taboo in white America, even though it's opening up. It's really still taboo to talk about anything paranormal, metaphysical in the African American community because of the religious overlay of it's either demonic or who you've been hanging out with or that kind of thing. And who wants that? I'm just too old to care at this point in my life. You know, I don't care. But you know, and I think that's changing. Obviously, it is.
It is. It's changed a lot, and
yeah, but it's a long way to go, brother.
Yeah, you brought up Billy Carson, and
yeah, brother Billy's out there, and he's
well, you know, and everybody knows. Man. Yeah. And everybody knows.
He's opening people's minds, and it takes courage to do that, you know, and you know, it just does. So
I go. Billy and I. Obviously, we're very close, right? We hang out a lot, and we've traveled the world together, and we have these groups and or these things that we do together, and sometimes it's, you know, we'll have a couple of thousand people there, and it's very diverse. Yeah. It's very. I'm going to say the crowds are probably 50-50, and that's a big number.
That's a big number.
It's 50-50. So I will have all of these come up to me and ask me questions about and want to tell me about their experiences. And all that shows me, Michael, is that one, Billy's bringing people together. That's number one. Yes. But two, he's also making it okay for segments that of society that wouldn't come out and talk about this for their own cultural reasons.
That's right.
But it's not racially divided. The ET contact is with Earth. Yeah. It's not with skin color.
Exactly. No, it is. And so that's the beauty of it. And so, but if we're going to go into the world that we want to have, I mean, to me, you know, I used to do a lot of anti-racism training. And so to me, this is an extension of that we have to be able to get used to diversity, not just on planet Earth now, but in the cosmos.
Totally.
Yeah. You got to get over the way people look. You got to get over the way, you know, somebody could have 3 arms and 4, you know, you got to be able to deal with the diversity because that's where we're going now. That's where it is.
Earthlings are the minority.
Yes. Yeah.
We are the minority.
We are the minority, brother. And so and if we want to grow up, what's that book, Childhood's End, Arthur C. Clarke? We got to stop being. We got to grow up. Childhood is over now. We're in the big leagues now. There are people out here who are more advanced. Some would say even godlike. And there's some out here who, just because they're advanced, don't mean they have a deep spirituality. And we've got to be able to navigate and negotiate in the world that's coming, because it's coming whether you want it to or not. It's coming.
Here's the trippy thing. The original abduction case was an interracial couple.
Yeah, Betty and Barney.
We can't forget about that, man.
No, you can't. You can't forget. As a matter of fact, I was posting some Dr. King photos today, for all the obvious reasons. And then I had some pictures of Barney that I got off online. He was in it. He was in his when he's in his post office, his postman suit. And him, because there's a book out now. And I haven't gotten it, but you can Google it, or you may have heard of it. But there's it's a white writer, but I think he or she is arguing bringing in the racial aspect into their contact experiences. It's pretty new. It's pretty new. I haven't read it yet. I got 25 books to read. I mean, I'm like you. I'm a voracious reader, and I was like, really? Maybe I'll just get to that. But yeah, talking, because, Barney was into civil rights. He was a Unitarian, so he's very progressive. So there's some background about him as well. At least he attended a UU church, he and Betty. So, but that's it. There's an interracial couple before it was fashionable.
Think about it, at that time.
At that time, brother.
1960.
Yeah,
you're gonna go get married in 1960
to a white woman, and then say that y'all saw
a UFO, got abducted.
They must be made of brass, brother. Because I
had to have been. I don't know.
I don't think I'd have done that.
No, life is already in that situation very complicated. without throwing that into the mix.
Yeah, I think I'd have been like, what? I didn't what? No, no.
Yeah.
But thank goodness he did.
Let's take our break.
Thank goodness they both did.
Let's take our break right here. Michael JS Carter is with us. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade.
My job is not to preach. My job is to take you on this journey.
In a state of passion, nothing negative can happen.
That it's the moons of those planets that would have life.
Sometimes I see, these energies also in your field.
It is our passion and our pleasure.
Hi, everybody. Jimmy Church here. Very special announcement, and that is we are shipping Fade to Black t-shirts again. It's been almost 2 years. We did a full upgrade to the website, so you can head over to jimmychurchradio.com. It's all simple to do, and it's right there. Remember, we broadcast 4 nights a week, Monday through Thursday. We bring you the best, the brightest, the most knowledgeable and amazing guests, the best conversations. We do that 4 nights a week. We also do 4 days a week. We broadcast the news, and we do that live too as well. It's not a one-man show. I do it with website support. I do it with producers. I do it with writers and artists. All contribute to the show. The best way to help support what we do here is with the Fade to Black t-shirt. And you can get your Fade to Black t-shirt one of 2 ways. First, go to jimmychurchradio.com, order a shirt. It's really that simple. You're going to get a tracking number, it's going to get shipped, and it's going to get autographed. The second way to get a shirt is with a Game Changer membership. Now, the Game Changer membership not only includes a free t-shirt, but you get a private email to me. You get unlimited commercial-free downloads. You have full access to the website, and everything includes free shipping, and everything is autographed. So help support the show. Get your Fade to Black t-shirt today. The links are below. You can just go to jimmychurchradio.com, and it's right on the website. So there you go. I'm Jimmy Church, Fade to Black. I'm so excited that I just have one thing to say. Go Backley Tappy. River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right. Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Michael JS Carter. That's Reverend to you and I. Michael, take us back to 1989 and your first contact experience. What happened?
Okay. I was in Mexico, in Cancun, with my girlfriend at the time. And we had a day where we said, well, we're not going to go to the beach. So we went to the pyramids at Chichen Itza and Tulum, right on the Yucatan there. And, again, Jimmy wasn't into, I was still trying to work through Christianity. Was I going to hold on to that or not? So anyway, we're having a wonderful time, and we see the pyramids, and, what can you say about the Mayan civilization? It raises more questions than answers in some ways. So when we got back to JFK, I went on, we got home, and I had been invited to a party down in Hell's Kitchen. I just kind of wanted to gloat. I just came back. It was 87 degrees. My friends were freezing. I kind of wanted to gloat. So went there. No adult beverages were consumed. There was none there. Food, deviled eggs, my favorites. So I went home and went to bed. And I, to this day, I don't really know if I woke up because I felt something in the room or someone in the room. But Sandy was asleep. And when I turned over, because I sleep on my stomach and on my side, this person was there. Now, this individual someone made this for me. I wanted him to be more like a Buddha, but he didn't have a robe on. He had on a tight-fitting It looked like it was made of Reynolds wrap. He was about 4 feet tall. He was at the foot of my bed. More chalk white than gray, but had that oblong, like the skull, like that. The profile was huge. And I thought I was going to have a heart attack. And so around him, and I'm using him, it could have been a she, could have been an it, but around this person was this blue light, like a cobalt blue, and around that was the bright light. Like my room was lit up like Times Square. It was on the Upper West Side of Manhattan because I was just in New York about 2 months ago, seeing my friend. We've remained friends all this time. I was there with my family. So we're talking the Excelsior Hotel, 45 West 81st Street, between Columbus and Central Park West. December 28, 1989. My girlfriend did not wake up. And I stared at this person, and I thought my heart was going to come out of my chest. I'm in the fetal position. I pulled the covers up over my head and hoped it would go away. When I did that, I felt the temperature change in the room like I was outside. It was freezing, and I heard this whoosh, whoosh, like a wind. And when I finally grew a pair and pulled the covers down, nobody was there. She woke up. I told her what happened. Deeply spiritual person. She didn't say, "What are you, some kind of nut?" So that was the beginning. And then every full and new moon, they would come. They would paralyze me. They didn't talk to me. They would show me pictures. They showed me a picture of a past life, and they showed me a picture of an event that happened later on. And they kept coming. And what I felt was my life just started to change a bit. I became, the best way I could say it, it's like I became more authentic. The physiological changes was where I could get by with less sleep. I had an abundance of energy. I felt like I could run 3 to 5. I was just energized. I felt smarter in some ways. I don't know. People call them downloads now. All I knew is that I just felt more intelligent. My hair grew faster. I got by on less sleep. All of a sudden I had to start doing. I had to start doing energy work. Now, before that, I want to be careful here. It wasn't like a wand was waved and all of a sudden, but I was already on a spiritual path. I was already questioning what I've been taught. I was studying metaphysics. I was meditating. I was reading existential philosophy. So I was already on a path, and then they came, and they would always come to my bedroom. Then this person came, a reptilian came twice to my room, scared the you-know-what out of me, walked right through my wall, never moved his mouth. It was a male voice. They always say this, they say it in the Bible, these angels. I'm not saying this was an angel. Don't be afraid. It's easy for them to say. Touched me, just stared at me, walked right through the wall, walked right through my wall. I'm jumping now to a healing I had. I remember telling Preston Dennett about it, who I'm sure you know. He put me in this story in one of his books. July 4th, 2013, I had a blood clot. I was living my life. It was like a country western song. I was losing my job. My dad had died, and I was getting divorced. Life was not fun. I had developed a blood clot. Did not know what a blood clot was. I thought I had pulled a muscle. So I had a blood clot from my right ankle all the way up to the groin area. So I'm going to the doctor. They're sticking me with blood. They're giving me a Nexaparin, Coumadin. I'm injecting myself with blood thinner. So 4th of July, 2013, they cancel the fireworks. I'm not a big firework person. I'm just not into fireworks, but I would go because I was trying to get back with my ex-girlfriend, well, my ex-wife at the time, and we were trying to work things out, but I also had to be a good parent. So we go there. They canceled it. It was rain, thunder, the whole bit. So at 9:50, this being comes in my room, only he had a hoodie, not a hoodie, a cowl, covered him, muscles coming through here, more humanoid looking. Okay, he holds his hand out. I turn around. He's in my room. He's in my room. He's almost as big as my ceiling, so he had to be close to 7.5, 8 feet tall. He sticks his hand out. An apple green light comes out of his hand. By this time, I have sat up on my bed like, what the? It hits me in my stomach. I see it, but I feel no pain. He dissolves like you see in Star Trek. Just the molecules just dispersed. I looked down at my leg, which was big as like I had one of my legs was like a LeBron James leg. I wish I was built like that, but I'm not. That leg had now become normal. The next day, I call my ex and my daughter. They both did the same thing when I went over there. Like it was choreographed. He healed your leg. I had to go to the doctor to get my, they would check it, and they every 10 days a week they would prick and take the blood out. This time I go and they say, what happened to your leg? I'm not going to get locked up or medicated. I say, I don't know. They say, what happened to your leg? I said, maybe the medicine is working. They said, no, it doesn't work that fast. What happened to your leg? So I'm not going to tell them this. So I say, you know what? I don't know what happened to my leg. And you don't know what happened to my leg. But can't you be happy for me? Be happy for me. They backed off. They were like, well, of course we're happy for you, but we've never seen anything like this before. I had called Preston that night because it happened at 10 minutes to 10 my time, but it was 10 minutes to 7 his time, but Preston wasn't home because I wanted to tell somebody, hey, man, my leg is healed. And, Preston has written those books, written 2 books on UFO healings. So I had that. Then in 2019, this person came into my life. It was also interesting. I was at a UFO conference, and Steve Bassett was there. I met his mom there, but Steve Bassett was there. It was at it was in the University of Knoxville, and it was wonderful. And I tell you, it was wonderful in a lot of ways. But I got the first time ever, I got a standing ovation talking about what I'm talking to you about. So it sticks in my mind. So Steve was there, and we had talked, which was interesting because we saw each other, but we never really connected. So anyway, I met some people, and, you exchange numbers, and this woman called me, and she said, I got a friend who needs to tell you something. You don't know her. She bought your books. I told her about you, but she wants to talk to you. Can I give you her number? Give her your number. And I was like, oh, okay, well, what is this? And she said, she just has something to tell you. This woman calls me. It was interesting because she was a psychic and she was a lawyer. Talk about left and right brain hemispheres. And I don't know what type of jurisprudence she practiced, but she said, I heard about you. I heard about your talk. I'm going to get your books. She said, but I have to tell you that I'm a psychic. And I said, okay. And she said, I see praying mantis people around you. And I say, okay, what am I supposed to say to that, Jimmy? Well, what do you say? I said, okay. And she said, but you're going to see them too. And she said, I think you're going to see them within 3 days. And I'm thinking, wow, this sounds like an Easter story. I said, okay. So the first night I was living alone. Remember we talked about, I was divorced, for 3 years before I started hanging out again. And when my brother was murdered, was murdered, right? And he would be around me because he smoked cigarettes. I don't smoke cigarettes, and so sometimes my apartment, this is the home we live in now, it would smell like cigarettes, and I would say, Kevin, okay, you're here. I love you. I go about my evening. But I would walk around the apartment and I just felt weird. Like there was a presence. But I said, this is auto-suggestion, Michael. Just stop it. The second night goes by. because it's usually at night it gets a little funky. And I have post-traumatic stress stuff. Sometimes it's hard for me to be alone at night because of, these experiences. But I do it. But I started walking around my apartment maybe to get some juice or whatever. And I said, man, there's somebody, I just felt it. The third night, just before I go into bed, my hair was just standing up on end. So, but I went to bed, and I'm lying on my stomach meditating. I'm a little nervous, but I'm like meditating. And I feel the mattress sink, and this person is like standing over me like that. And then they just vanish. They vanish. I wasn't asleep. The weight of the mattress went down, and this was there. And it stuck with me, and this was in 2019. And I called this individual and I said, please tell your friend, thank you. And she was right. Within 3 days of her telling me this, I had the visits. Now, I get these things made, this artwork made. I have a friend in Nevada named Carol McLeod. She's a sculptor. And when I tell she's experienced.
I know Carol. She's cool.
Yeah. So she makes these things for me when I say, hey, I just had this happen and this is what they look like. And yeah.
I've got some of her stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've done a lot of man. Okay, I don't want to get too sideways here.
Yeah.
But there's cool and then there's cool. Carol is cool.
She's cool, man. She is cool.
Way cool.
Yeah.
Have you heard her play?
No, but she sent me pictures of her when she goes and she does these little gigs and
she does these gigs. She came up to one time. I've known her for many years.
Yeah.
She comes up to me. She's got like 2 guitar cases or something.
Yes,
she goes,
yes.
You and I are going to play today. Like, oh, man, okay. Anyway, so she busts out this ukulele, and she's just, man, she is. I just love her to death. I hope she's listening right now.
I'm going to talk to her tomorrow. I'm going to tell her that we talked about her on the show.
She knows. Yeah. She knows I have deep affection for her. She's an amazing woman. Okay, now let's back this whole thing back up to 1989 for a second.
Okay,
because that's a paradigm shifting, world changing moment.
Demarcation. Yes, no question.
You get back from Mexico. I love the Mayan reference too as well.
Yeah,
that's going on. But there is the day before, and then there is the day after. Were you going through all of those thoughts with the religious context to it about what the Bible is, what your worldview is? Now something has appeared in your room in Reynolds wrap, which is
it looked like a Lost in Space. I don't know if you're old enough to remember that. Remember they wore those suits. It looked like they fit like this, but they looked like Reynolds wrap. They look like, cellophane.
Right. What was going through your mind?
Well, was I crazy? I can tell you, this is what I did. I went down to a store called the Open Center. I remember that. And they had a UFO section. This was downtown on Spring Street in Soho. And what I did was, and I'll always forget, I'll always never not forget this. I felt like I was buying condoms for the first time. I wouldn't even look at people. I was not sleeping. I had all this energy. I was wired. I couldn't sleep at night. It was post-traumatic stress, which I still have now, but the regressions helped. I was in therapy for a while for something else, but my therapist was open to this because it was all affecting me. I couldn't sleep. And I was up all hours. I was a wreck. I was afraid to go to sleep because I thought these people would come, and which they did every full and new moon for 8 months or so. I went and I bought, And remember, my girlfriend Sandy's hanging in there with me, man. You know, a lot of relationships break up over this kind of stuff. So I go and I remember I bought Edith Fiore's book Encounters. I bought a ton of books on UFOs and some stuff on religion. And I went up to the cash register, and I always remember this guy. This is before dreadlocks were in. He was bald, and he had like maybe 3 locks coming out here. He looked bizarre. And when I went up to put the books, I wouldn't look at him. And he said, "Are you okay, brother?" I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." And he said, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, he used an expletive. He said, "You look like," I said, "I'm fine." He said, he looked at the books. He said, "Is this a hobby or is this for real?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Is this a hobby or is this for real?" I said, "It's for real." He rang up the books. He gave me a business card. He wrote a number on the back. He gave me the card. He said, "Call that number." And when I called that number, it was a support group for experiencers.
That I used to do the same thing. I would go to Borders Books, you know, these bookstores and stuff.
I'm familiar with Borders.
Yeah, there was another place in LA. I'm sure it's still there. It was called the Psychic Eye bookstore.
Yes. Ooh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, the place was so cool. And and I would buy jewelry there as my excuse. Okay. But I would sneak over. And I would do the same thing at Borders. In different bookstores. I would go to the UFO section and felt strange about it. Like, man, nobody can see me in here.
That's right.
You know, let's do this. And then so I would buy my UFO books, but then I would buy a book on cars.
Yes. You're fronting. That's your front. You're front.
Yeah,
this is what I really want. Yeah. But that's how I met Bud, man. I mean, I met Gene Mundy. There's a wonderful book today. It's still there by Dr. Edith Fiore. I'm sure it's called Encounters, and it's about experiencers. And in the back, they're mental health professionals that they recommend in different states and whatever. And so there were 3 people. I mean, I was a wreck, brother, but there were 2. But now I later come to find out that Aphrodite Claymore was well known as a mental health professional for experiencers. But for me, the name Aphrodite, I was mentally not ready for that. I needed something more normal. So I went to Dr. Gene Mundy, who had an office on Long Island and in the Village on 13th Street. So I said, I'm going there. I just was not, I mean, I know that's small-minded, but Aphrodite, I need help.
No, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, Aphrodite wasn't going to help me. And so she regressed me. I still have the tapes. And, you know, I didn't know anything about it. She was good. She helped me. I wasn't crazy, but she did say, she said, you can listen to this, but this is what happened to you. And then some years later, I did the annual Long Island UFO conference, and Bud was there, Bud Hopkins, and he regressed me. Bud was very good at what he did, and we became friends. And but you know, we had this tension because I was more, Bud, yes, this happened, and I can't sleep, and I know I look like a turd, and but I'm telling you, some good came out of this. And he was like, you got to be crazy. And, you know, and so he had his gang, and they had horrible things happen. And so, but he and I remained friends, and he softened a bit and I softened a bit. So there was growth there, but they helped me.
I'm going to interrupt you.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the clock. I want to get some other stuff. I want to talk about your regression.
Okay.
And I was always reticent to be regressed, and I was very vocal about it on the show for many years. I ended up doing it about 6 months ago with Sarah Breskman Cosme, and we did it live on camera for my TV show. Okay. And I went into it without we weren't going to explore or do anything specific.
Okay.
But we were just going to roll the cameras. The production crew, Michael, everybody, cameramen, people make all that, directors, producers, everybody was out of the studio behind the glass behind me.
Okay.
And we had candles lit and we did all that stuff. And it was amazing, but it was also exhausting. I was under for an hour and 11 minutes. And I thought it was like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
When she pulled me out, I went deep.
Yeah.
Which is what I want to ask you. When I went, it was so surprising to me how fast I went from, to
yes.
And I was under. I was gone. I was gone for an hour and 11 minutes. With you, when you were regressed, how long was the session?
It was an hour and a half for both of them. Well, but we talked before. And my tape though was about 45 minutes, an hour long. I'm easy to regress. Now remember, I wanted help badly. I wanted someone to tell me that I wasn't a nut. And I also wanted to be able to sleep at night. So I was open and I trusted them, which helps because I'm a proponent of regression. And with Bud, I had already been through it twice with Dr. Mundy. So I was like, yeah, Bud said, let's do this. And his reputation preceded him. There were things that I did not know happened. For instance, when I felt that air, when I was taken out, when I was on a ship, I had no recollection of that. But obviously, maybe you thought, well, if you're going outside, if you feel outside, something happened. But it was like I laid a burden down. It was healing for me. But I wanted some normality. And when Bud came along, I was still having them. And so it was like another affirmation. And, Bud just said, look, I want to do this for you. I'm not charging you. You didn't have a charge. I just want to do this for you. So, I can say I was regressed by the late Bud Hopkins and Gene Mundy, but it was good for my mental health. Today, Martin Luther King holiday, it's a long way from 1989. I'm much, much better. But my wife, and I'm more open about it. I talk about it on podcasts. I mention it, but it's hard for me to be alone late at night if I'm home by myself and I'm up, because not that I've been hurt. And one time they did hurt me by mistake, but it's just the bizarreness of the way they come to me in my bedroom. It's like I could be lying like this. I may not even be asleep, or I could just wake up and I could turn like this, and
not cool.
Listen, brother, I had a cop put a gun up to my head once. When I was 16, a mistaken thing, but it was just unnecessary. I was scared. Okay. I was with some other friends of mine, and colors got brighter, and I felt very, very alive, but I was like, I don't know what this cop is going to. That was nothing seeing these people. Because of the startled, Yeah. So I was having a problem. And I was in therapy for something else, just dysfunctional family stuff, just trying to get my life together. And I mentioned this to the therapist, and he said, let's talk about that as well. So it was nice. But, it's a game changer. And so I'm better, but I have a hard time. And I wake up every night. See, I go to the gym at 5:30. I'm not doing that for accolades because I swim. I try to do it a couple times a week. But I noticed that I wake up at the times that I have my visits. And my visits, I had any time between, 3 and 5. I'm usually at the gym at 5:30. But I just wake up. I could go to bed at 11. Like, I'll go to bed tonight. I'm not going to go to bed, I think, because I'm pumped up. You got me pumped. We've been conversating.
Right,
So,
right.
But I will wake up at 3:30, 4 o'clock and function.
You know what I do? When I had my first thing that happened, and for me it was 1995. I slept with the TV and the lights on.
Yes.
For 10 years. 10 years.
Yes.
And I had no issues. And Michael, I didn't tell anybody. And so you know what I do today? I live alone, right? And my house is haunted, by the way. But I live alone. And when I have night lights.
Yes.
And cameras and motion detectors too, by the way. But I've got night lights in every room, every hallway, everywhere. So in my bedroom, now I am so, this is I'm listening to you and I'm just kind of freaking myself out. Now, I've got to go to bed tonight too. Thank you, Michael. Anyway.
At some point, brother.
When I walk in my room every night, and I have one of those touch lamps that you touch the metal and it turns on. Okay. Every night I turn that on, right? In my dark room, and it lights up. And I say to myself, every night, I'm talking about 365 days a year, I say the same thing. One night I'm going to turn this on and somebody's going to be there, right?
I'm here to tell you. Listen, now,
I'm prepared.
I'm glad you brought that up. I will sleep with my light on until the last minute that I know I'm gone from the alpha, delta, and then I'll turn, as if keeping the light on will keep them out. Even now, I've closed my blinds. It's pitch black out there. There's a pond out here, but it just freaks me out a bit. But I will say this: my wife is my current wife is a therapist. She's not an experiencer that I know of. But I've never met anyone who has night lights on in every part of this house. I'd like to see her regress. But when I go upstairs,
right,
there's a night, and I'm looking for a shadow or something because she's asleep. But there's a night light on in every room. I'm not BSing you. The kind that you just kind of just plug it in. And I said to her, have you ever had an experience? I've never seen anybody with all these lights in the house. But you know what? I'm glad she does. Because it helps me.
My house is lit up. And so now I can't sleep in the dark. I can't do it. Everything. So I've got night light, it's dim. But it's not dark. Oh no. No.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
I hear you. And for me, I mean, like you said, 95, and and I'm sure I'm going to have some more experiences, but I don't think you ever really get over it.
Nope.
I don't think you do. But I'm more open about it now. I mean, sometimes, man, I will relive it, and sometimes inappropriate places.
What's the message? I mean, why you? Are they have they said things to you? I wanted to go back to the regression too, as well.
Oh yeah, we still have some time. Yeah.
So you went on to the ship. What happened there?
Okay, there was It was weird. It's chilly. I'm on a table that's very hard. I can see these beings around me. So in other words, this one came and got me and took me. There is there's a light, but I don't know where, I don't know where it's coming from. There's a light, and it's just a calmness there. And I just feel like I'm like someone's just putting their hand on me to keep me calm. I don't feel anything else. I just see them looking down at me like that, and their big heads. And I'm screaming on one of them. I'm embarrassed now with the Gene Monday one. I'm just screaming like, not very macho at all, which I'm not anyway. But my things were, when they came to the room, and on one occasion, they paralyzed me. I don't think they took me out of the room. I didn't feel that. And they showed me a picture of it was me as a monk with that little bad haircut and the little hole in your head there, and which for me was like, because I'm so comfortable with religion, it's like whether I'm in a cathedral or whatever. So I have a religious background, and they showed me a picture of an event that happened. I was speaking somewhere, and it was interesting because I didn't forget about it, and it actually happened. I remember when I was speaking, I said, "This is what they showed me." I was speaking at a church. When I was in Boston one time doing an anti-racism workshop, they followed me there, and they paralyzed me. I was on Beacon Street up near the Boston Common. They were in my room, and they showed me my business card. I use it. They showed me in my mind's eye, there was a picture of like an icon of a gray person, like icons, like before there were icons, and he was pointing at a pair of hands in prayer with a red lightning bolt through it. And that's when what I got from that was, I took it and put it on my business card. But what I got from that is that part of my ministry was to do healing prayer, was to do healing energy work, because it was prayer hands with a lightning bolt through it, and there was an icon. That's the best way I could describe it, of a gray doing that. Like, don't look at me, look at that. The only time I heard a voice was when the reptilian, he said, "Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid." And what are you going to do with somebody who looks like that? My things happened, for lack of a better word. My messages, they weren't messages, but it was just the way my life changed. It was just the way I became more authentic. It was just the way, it was like something in my heart softened. I was more loving. I was more tender. I was more real. That's the only way I can explain it. I was more present. People gravitated. People came to me. People would say to me, I do remember this, Jimmy. When I was paralyzed, I always felt a lot of energy around my throat, and the energy felt like electricity. I could be lying in the bed, and sometimes I was afraid to even open my eyes because I'm awake. I'm not asleep. And I would, I was just, all this electricity was in my body. And people started saying, your voice has shifted a little. Your voice is so soothing. Your voice is so, I could listen to you. I could just, they were working, I guess, on my chakras. People gravitated towards me. So my life became more of what my mission, and I don't mean that in a grandiose sense, but I'm fortunate enough to say that I'm doing my life's work. I don't make a lot of money, but my needs are met. I'm living a life of service, which is why I got out of show business. And I use those skills in the pulpit, to deliver a message to talk. I love public speaking, but because I was drinking, man, and drugging and sexing, and never once did they say no, 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 no. But after that, hey, man, I stopped doing drugs. I stopped drinking for about 10 years. After that, there were some other things that happened too with my health. But after that, and I was still struggling. But after that, after they came, it was like, shape up. You can have this life, or you can have this life. And I think that's how our religions are started. Even when you talk to people now, whether it's in AA or people who had dependency problems or whatever, there was usually, it may have been a religious or spiritual experience, but it was something that it just snapped them out of it and said, you got a choice here. What are you going to do? And that's what happened to me. I became an atheist. I became an agnostic. I was a Buddhist. I studied all these religions, and I was getting away from Christianity, and I was searching, and then I came back, and now I adhere to all of that because there's truth in all those religions, but I always come back to the teachings of Jesus. Now, if you ask me if I was a Christian, I would probably say no, because what Christianity means today is definitely right now not what I want to be a part of. But I keep going back to those, maybe because I'm born here in the West. Maybe if I was in East, it'd be the Dalai Lama or Lao Tzu or whatever. But I can't escape it. And I've tried to, but I always come back around to those teachings. And the teachings of Jesus are different from Christianity. Obviously, he was Jewish, those kinds of things. But now I'm content. I'm happy with it. I don't have to prove anything, but I don't have to let people tell me, well, you're not Christian enough. I don't want to hear all that. And I don't have to prove anything. But I had to. There's a wonderful quote by T.S. Eliot that says, well, it's kind of contradictory, but it says, we will never cease from exploration. But at the end of all our exploring, we will come to the place we started, and we will know it for the very first time. Because life is cyclical. It's not linear. And so I'm a different person. I read those teachings and I read Buddha. I got Buddhists here and I meditate and all. But that's a philosophy. Buddhism is not a religion. But you get my point. I got Hindu gods here and whatever. But, and I remember the Dalai Lama saying this. He said, if you have to leave your religion of origin, don't talk bad about it because it still works for other people. He said, but don't leave. If you have to leave it and you want to become Buddhist or whatever, make sure you've explored and exhausted everything before you do it. And if you still find you have to do it, then leave. But if you haven't, explore your religion. And if it doesn't work for you, leave. But if it does, why? You can still use Buddhism and meditation to be better Christian or better pagan or better whatever. So that's where I am in my journey, but now I'm at peace with it. I don't have to because I lost a lot of that at one point. I know we got to go, but yeah. And what I find, I mean, today, because I'm so different today than I was 10 years ago or 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I'm a completely different person. But when I go to a different country and meet people and see things, okay, that's great, that's fun. You're learning, you're seeing stuff, and all of that, Chichen Itza, whatever it may be, Peru, Egypt, Europe. But here's the trip for me. I always go back to this one thought. And it's not only in ancient history, but it applies today. Jesus, right? Running around the Middle East, Jerusalem, Sea of Galilee, whatever, right? But what about the people in Asia? What about the indigenous cultures in North and Central and South America? Why didn't they? Right? Why weren't they exposed? They weren't. There wasn't, or was there? But just under a different name. A different situation.
And then I look at today and I think about like right now, and I think about kids digging through a garbage dump in Brazil or India, so they could survive for a day. What about them? Where is there, or is there something there for them? And I'm confused by it all, but yet I think to myself, there is a central consciousness.
Yeah.
There's something that is driving all of us.
Yes.
And it's different it's a different situation for different people. But
Exactly. And I think that's what we have to always remember. I mean, again, if I go back to, I'm looking at the teachings of Jesus, and, when he was saying the poor you're going to have with you always, Buddha dealt with that as well. 500 years before Jesus, Jesus, they didn't say we can fix this. They didn't say we can stop all hunger or whatever. They said these beings will be here, but I know how you can navigate that. I know how you can negotiate that. You have to be able to be of service. And so I think sometimes we want another being, whether ETs or God or whatever, to fix things that human beings have done ourselves. But I will leave you with this. This is from Dr. Howard Thurman. He was a mentor to Dr. King. He was a mystic, one of the most influential ministers in our country. He opened the first interracial church in the United States called the Church of All Peoples back, I think, in 1944 in San Francisco. He says many things, but he says this: any truth found in religion is in the religion because it's true. It's not true simply because it's found in the religion.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well, what about? Okay, so but this is, and we are out of time. But you can answer this quickly, maybe. What about the exoplanets that are being found every single day? Right, it's tens of thousands of known exoplanets right now. I mean, we're waiting. We need time to catalog them. There's so many, right? And every star has got at least one planet. Every star in the universe got at least a planet to it. So it's a lot of stuff that needs to be done. What about those planets? This is what I'll say,
Jimmy, real quick. I don't know about those planets. I do know we live in a populated universe, but I think that's a distraction. What I want to hear more about are the planets and the beings we're already in touch with, that Hayam Mashed tells us about, that Elaine Juliet talks about. I'm not saying I don't want to poo-poo that, but I think that's a distraction to keep the public going. We have these people who have said we're already in contact. We've already been doing this for 80 years. We've already have conversation, trading of technology. We already have bases on these places. That's what you want to focus on, because we're being told that.
Michael, thank you so much, my brother. Thank you,
brother.
Thank you so much. I look forward to our next conversation, and I can't wait to hang out with you again, man. And just much luck, and just have a great 2024. And thank you for helping us kick off the new year.
You too, brother, and we'll catch up. Peace to you and your family.
Michael JS Carter. Thank you so much, Michael. Behave and be well. Okay.
You too, brother.
Now go sleep with the lights on. I know I am.
Blessings to you. Good night.
The very best. Michael JS Carter. Thank you so much. Perfect show tonight. And tomorrow night, right here on Fade to Black, Daniel Sheehan is with us. That's right. Tomorrow night, we're going to be talking about the national security state and where disclosure is right now. All of that tomorrow night with Daniel Patrick Sheehan. So I'll see you all here tomorrow night. Thank you, Michael. Great conversation. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Thank you to Bill. Thank you to Jonacide. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and this broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Until tomorrow night with Daniel Sheehan, I want you to be safe. Go Backley Tappy.